We're back with part 2 of this week's Melbourne Punter Show. Potts, you're doing a midweek set for tomorrow?
Yep, yeah, no, I've done the form for Sandown. Looks like a pretty good card. There's one sensational race there. It's a 3-year-old race with Galaxy Raider that Dan mentioned before, and Popovich. And
some of the...
it's just a really good race for a midweek race. I think it not only will be an interesting race tomorrow, but I think good form will come out of that race.
And then following the weekend, we'll be back in the chat room and all the normal products will be available. Boys, something that I think we've all been working towards for a while is trying to get a minimum bet rule implemented here in Victoria, like what they have in New South Wales. And there was some interesting chatter on Twitter where I believe Snowy half destroyed Henry Thwaites when he put up some of those figures on Saturday night. It's something that I like. Let's face it, the blokes that are still left on course, they have nowhere near the scale of business as what the corporates do, yet they're compelled to bet. I believe that the corporates should be compelled to bet as well.
What are they compelled to do at the moment?
Whatever they feel, they're compelled to do nothing.
Except in New South Wales.
Yeah.
So what in New South Wales from 9 o'clock, is that right?
From 9 o'clock race day, they're compelled to bet to win 2,000 in the city and win 1,000 in the country. And then they're trying to find ways around that.
How has that gone from punters in New South Wales?
Most of the bigger punters and pros that I've spoken to are very happy with it.
And the bookies have made changes to their business, and most of them are just business as usual.
Everyone's just got on with it. It's just been
no problem whatsoever.
Yeah, it's no problem. It's solved a massive problem now. You know, because a lot of the guys that were having to use bowler accounts that really didn't want to are no longer using bowler accounts. So it's got to be better for the corporates as well. And the other point I want to make about the corporates is, you know, I probably never would have got to the point of selling public sets if it wasn't for the restrictions, and I know Snowy probably wouldn't have.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, it's probably the same for Fletch, you know, like instead of just dealing with an individual professional punter on reasonable grounds, you've now created this environment where they are putting really good information in the hands of smart people that previously just didn't have the time to do all the form themselves. They're good operators, so you know they've made a problem for themselves.
Go back to something that's really important that everyone just understands in the whole environment, including Four Corners last night, and the tennis and everything recently. You just said a bowler account like it's like how punters do. No, it's a bowler account. What that actually is illegal.
Yep.
Well, I suppose it's fraud if you want to take it to the nth degree.
Yep.
And it's something that should not happen.
Yep.
So what it's doing is creating an either-or situation that if you want to run your business properly, you have to do something illegal. Yep. Or you go offshore.
Or you get out of the game altogether.
Or you get off the game, or you just bet, including betting on sports.
Yeah.
Why don't racing administrators realise that a healthy market is healthy for racing and legitimate betting, not through bowlers, through yourself, is good for racing? That's what's got me stuff.
The thing that got me was the fact that from the Asian Racing Conference, when they said that a certain Asian exchange was accounting for 8% of all turnover on Australian racing, they were staggered. Well, I'm staggered that they're staggered because they shouldn't be. Because they've made it harder for all of the bigger players to play here. The tote's not competitive, the corporates don't want to bet, and the on-course marketplace is shrinking. So where else are they going to go? They can either bet amongst themselves, or they can go and find the next spot to play.
You're talking about resourceful people, so if they want to stay in the game, they'll find a way. Can I just make one point about the bowler accounts before we move past it? Just apart from the legalities, right, and the grey areas involved, tell me the difference between Sportsbet receiving a bet off, say, let's just say, pick an example, say Sean Bartholomew, and then betting that back with another corporate that doesn't know they're betting it back because they've got a bet from a pro, to, like me, to ring up the mate and say, listen, Adam, I reckon there's a horse in the race on Saturday that's got a good chance, why don't you have 2,000 on it? And Adam does that through his account. Like, what's the difference? And at the end of the day, I know you weren't saying, I'm just saying that bookmakers, because they've got a licence, have been betting back for years based on that sort of information, and they're trying to stop other people from doing it because of a loophole.
No, but there's a big difference. The big difference is the transparency of information that the racing industry pretend that they want. Because if they wanted it, they would allow Sean Bartholomew to bet to a minimum amount, and because how would they do that? Simply forcing the rules that are being enforced in New South Wales. Now, I've come from media and got into form. You guys have come from form and started doing a bit of media. So I actually will back myself to read the landscape a bit here. The advertisers for Racing Victoria is Crownbet.
Yeah.
And their bigger and broader extension is corporate bookmakers. And their bigger and broader extension, I'm not saying about who's right or wrong, is having a big fight with the TAB, including severing their deal with Sky Channel and all the other shit fight. So they're not going to take the sides of the TAB in this argument. Conversely, neither is New South Wales going to take the sides of the corporates.
Yeah.
So, well, get back to what happened Friday night.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
Saturday night, wasn't it?
No, it was Friday.
Okay.
Was it Friday? No, it was Friday and then carried on in Saturday.
Yeah.
So, for people probably, a lot of people don't know, and a lot of people did tune in. So, I was sitting there, I just, thank God, Zen and locked at Mooney Valley. Bless its heart. Probably for the wine for us. One for the good guys. So, I'd reached for a glass of red and, as you do. And anyway, up on Twitter popped this conversation between Nathan Snow from Sydney, professional punter, and Andrew Thwaites. Andrew's RVL Director, Chairman, Media Rights and Wagering Subcommittee. So Snowy asked him what was the negative to the minimum bet rule, and Andrew's response was, worse prizes to 99.9% of punters who can get on. Now I saw red when he said that and nearly spilt mine all over the desk.
I don't think you're alone.
So I sort of came on and had a bit of a crack myself, and to his credit, went sort of back and forth a bit, but to his credit, Andrew reached out to me and said, maybe we should have a chat about this and give me a call. So I did. So I rang him yesterday and had a terrific conversation with him. The first thing he sort of wanted to get across was that he's still very open-minded on the issue.
Yeah.
Clearly open-minded on the issue and receptive to a lot of feedback, has not made his mind up any way, shape or form. I garnered from just chatting to him that, I wanted to get to the bottom of that pricing comment because I didn't, I think it's a fallacy. I've worked on both sides of the fence. And
Snowy did put that table up of the SPs from Saturday, Melbourne versus Sydney, and it was a small sample size, granted, but they were essentially the same.
So from what I could gather, he's because he's driving because he's chairman of the media rights and the wagering.
Yeah.
So he's driving the RVL vision to grow the sport.
Yeah.
And hopefully it's I think the Channel 7 thing's going really well at the moment, and the figures are good, maybe, hopefully. But so he's sort of wanting to, I think he's looking for the people who keep coming in, the new and reinvigorated punters, to get the best price for their punting dollar. Now I think that's where it stemmed from. I could be wrong, but I think that's where it stemmed from.
Well, that makes sense, doesn't it? To try and get the new people in to keep, if they're getting the best possible price, it just keeps them in the game for longer.
Yeah, now that's right.
If they've got X amount to lose.
So it also went on, and so I was honest with him, and I said he was encouraged that I could actually get on in a few places.
Yep.
There's bookmakers who've taken it upon themselves to self-police. Sports bet are betting basically the New South Wales rules across the board. Crownbet, the TAB. I mean, everyone is different, obviously.
Yeah, everyone's different.
Do you want to say why they would do that?
Well, they want my intelligence, I assume, for a price.
That's a very key point that too many people don't understand.
So at least there's 5 or 6 books, Top Sport and so forth.
And
then there's the 3 road bookies, Bet365, William Hill and Ladbrokes who won't buy it all. But I gathered that if that wasn't the case, if I didn't have those avenues, like say in the UK where everything's just
cool.
they would be hot on the case.
Yeah.
He said we want everyone betting, which is what we say.
Yeah.
I made him an offer to come and sit with me and have a look at the dynamic odds in the market on a race day and how it all works and the pricing algorithms of the corporate bookmakers, the movements in the market, with that pricing, if one price goes off, another price goes out. The prices, and then the robot's betting heavily late, which he was receptive to and thinks he might do. So hopefully we'll keep our fingers crossed with that. So look, again, as we're finding with our dealings with RVL, whenever we speak to them, they're quite. It was very receptive. He listened, took it all on board, and I think we just keep putting the pressure on. Hopefully we'll get some framework down the track,
The thing that I've sort of mentioned about this, what I'm looking forward to seeing is after a reasonable amount of time, and when was it? Was it the 1st of Jan or 1st of Feb last year when the minimum bet rules came in New South Wales? It's been about a year. But I want to see if that's had any effect on turnover, whether it's gone up, down or otherwise, because if they come back and say turnover's gone up and we're copping a clip of the ticket, it's made us an extra 600,000 for the year or something. I don't know what other questions they've got left to ask.
Can I talk? This is what I call the misinformation highway.
Okay.
Okay. For this reason. So New South Wales got a grandfather arrangement, I think it's called,
Yeah.
with TAB, 99-year arrangement. If all of a sudden they find themselves having Sportsbet and William Hill and Ladbrokes and Bet365 all going up significantly, do you think they would send out a press release saying our association with the corporate bookmakers are working really well? I reckon at 100 million to 1 in drifting that would ever happen, because the TAB would vet all their stuff. I'm fucking telling you,
But
it wouldn't.
But the thing is, it doesn't have to come out in the financials at the end of the... Like, even, I don't care whether it's... You don't have to break it down to that degree, Rob. It just, if they go, right, since the minimum bet rule, across the board, it's gone up by 2%, then surely that's
what I'm saying.
not having an
But
effect.
unfortunately, the reverse then happes in Victoria. That,
where they will break it down.
Yeah, we'll break it down.
Yeah.
It's all fantastic, and our relationship with the TAB isn't going that well, so we're trying to... Because there's a big blue happening here between the TAB, we've got the parimutuel. See, everyone has to understand the whole landscape here. So it's been fantastic that you're going to them with one explanation. What they're not telling everyone is that this is all... A big part of this is this long-term range we've got with the TAB that they're trying to break right down because of the retail establishments, the monopoly they've got. And the bigger picture, that the TAB won't budge on the parimutuel takeout.
But is that the TAB or is that the legislation that won't let them do that?
What, seriously? No, it's a TAB, but it's also the racing industry and breeders in the racing industry, #breeders, who don't understand how much better it would be for the industry if the TAB takeout was down.
Yeah.
We all understand it. Every single, in America, anywhere else where the TAB, where parimutuel pricing's been reduced, turnover's gone up.
Yeah.
Everywhere. So why isn't it? It's because they go, yeah, no worries. So TAB's, the parimutuel betting is declining significantly. At the moment, the TAB don't care because the fixed
odds going up,
revenue's going up, and all that's missing out is the racing industry.
Yeah.
So then the racing industry will go, well, fuck you, we'll just get right behind the corporates, and then the corporates are saying, well, we're not going to do a minimum bet rule. So it's a vicious circle at the moment. We need a circuit breaker, because all that's going to happen is smart punters are going to blow up, the average punters don't care less, and the corporates will keep making money.
They're going to be having more and more problems because, I don't know, if the corporates bar everyone that wins, there's a lot more punters winning than previously because there's a lot of professional punters providing them with information that, that compared to the past.
Yes.
They're going to bar everyone, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, look, I'm really heartened by Dan's conversation with Andrew. I think that's fantastic. I think it's all the information I've had from Racing Victoria as well has been positive, that they're genuinely considering this and they're looking at all the aspects of it. And the complications with the TAB sort of to the side, I understand it, but I think we're going to... No,
but there is an issue.
You took it straight into the pools or best hope as well?
No, just the direct win bet on a TAB win price.
Well, why would I?
I have about 2 a year.
What you just said was everything. Now, all of a sudden, if that was greatly reduced, there's a twofold effect. The price is more...
No, that's
encouraging.
That's an absolute agreement. If the TAB takeout was lower, it'd be better for everyone. But, one step at a time. We're trying to get to a point where we've got the same rule in Victoria that we've got in Sydney, and let's just... I'm heartened that we seem to be heading in that direction, and that they're listening, and because this is we're doing a whole show about the episode or whatever segment about this. We shouldn't be. It shouldn't be a discussion. Like it should just be done and gone with. Because if all you are is a person that works hard on form, and you do better prices than the corporates do, you shouldn't be worried about whether you're going to be able to have a bet to win $2,000 or not.
When I first resigned, there was that NTRC, 1K flat across the board. And I resigned as a beauty because I can get on. Well, 2 months after I resigned, I was like, this is big, So I get on within a month.
Resigned from the factory.
I was in factory, so I resigned from Sportsbet to go out on my own, have a crack at it myself. And there was an odds to a monk, 500 everywhere. And what have I done here? I can't get on enough money to make a living out of this. And then luckily the New South Wales thing came in, and then a few of the Sportsbet
have said that they're happy to just go along with what the old NTRC rules were.
But there's a landscape too in general society that we have to overcome, and you've touched on it inadvertently or probably. And we saw it on the Four Corners show last night on tennis. I don't know about you guys, but some of the smartest wagering information I've ever heard in my life have come from tennis punters. Interviews and reading about the way they look at data and statistics and outlaying it. It's awesome. I've heard some podcasting on Champion Picks and various other places. It's great. So in other words, some of the smartest punters in the world are tennis punters. Yet Four Corners did a whole show about it and didn't show that side of it at all. Because society wants to pretend that every horse race or tennis match or that you bet on is just a flip of the coin and it's all potluck, and that it's not actually a fascinating wagering outcome where you can learn more, and the more stuff we discuss every week that interest us. How do you learn? Or as Dan said before, you learn from your losses.
Yeah.
As you said before, you're kicking yourself from monogram. Those little examples all add up, and it makes this caper fascinating. You've said before about, it's much more interesting than chess. Yet, what no one wants to do is say, well, these guys, to us, the Vince Accardi's, Dean Lester's, or Dominic Byrne that you've previously said, or all these smart guys that we've previously heard about that we love, well, they're all in a corner somewhere doing it quietly. Instead of, the exception obviously do know not, but it should be celebrated so that more people want to get involved with racing. Oh, this is actually interesting and you can win in it. Instead, if you're hiding behind bowler accounts and everything else like that, it's all underground, it's ridiculous.
There's nothing more deflating than putting the work in and not being able to get rewarded for it. So if you're putting time and effort into doing it and you're not being allowed to be able to gain the reward from it.
You should work at the sports meeting.
Is the policing of this minimum bet rule it's obviously clearly what's holding them back from implementing it.
Well, I think there's an issue there with they'd have to create some sort of department to, spend 150 grand a year on 3 staff or something to make sure it all ticks along and to check all the problems and things like that. So, and there's some legislational stuff to make so they can enforce it, but hopefully under the race fields legislation it should be smooth, shouldn't it?
Because I think they're still waiting for New South Wales.
I call bullshit on that.
No, the thing is, there's still an issue in New South Wales that hasn't been resolved with a certain bookmaker who advertised heavily during the tennis to the point where you couldn't watch it.
Yeah.
Who would have a set of prices before you logged in, and if you were a marked account, you had a different set of prices once you logged in. So it was $6 for everyone else, $4.40 for you.
If Racing Victoria
they haven't been able to
really wanted to implement it, they would implement it. And they wouldn't be hiding behind legalities or any of that shit. They would just say to the corporates who are their business partners at the moment, they would say, sorry, you have to do this. Now, if they wanted to, they would, and they'd shout it from the rooftops. Because could you imagine them going, all right, you know what we'll do? Because the other way of doing it is you actually use your own media outlets that they've got, said, right, today our ban list are Sportsbet, they're not going to let you have a bet. William Hill, they're not going to let you have a bet. Bet365, I'm just saying, CrownBet will. And then all of a sudden, you'd shame them into it, the drop of a hat. So if you wanted to. But clearly, so far, there's been no intent whatsoever. So I call bullshit on this whole hiding behind legalities. Racing New South Wales wanted to do it. They put it through. It's still the same country. I know sometimes Sydney and Melbourne look like different countries, but
I don't know. They do things differently up there.
I actually think it helped in Victoria that they did it. They introduced a minimum bet rule in New South Wales because
then you got no excuse.
Well, I think the corporates said, well, the writing's on the wall. It's only a matter of time. So we might as well, be a bit more careful about who we just outright bar here, and write some bets. In some of the examples you provided with CrownBet, Sportsbet, and so on.
Well, hopefully some more comes out of this O'Farrell review that's been happening for a while, and from self-interest again, it's not just Victorian racing I want to see it implemented on. I want to see, if you're putting a product up there, I don't care whether it's will Katy Perry sing Raw as the first song at the Super Bowl halftime. Hopefully there's another one.
Still jumping.
Yeah, I just hope there's another sort of prop bet like that this year that I can get a fill up out of the Super Bowl on. If you're putting the product up, you've got to stand behind your prices. It doesn't if I went to Hillsville on Saturday, we put up prices, we have to stand by them. It shouldn't be any different for whether it's me pickling around at the picnics or whether you're a multi-billion-dollar company. If you're putting prices up, you should have to stand by them.
Yeah. Okay, can I just address Andrew's point about the better prices, which I find a really difficult proposition to comprehend. By the time a race jumps, every runner's been backed. It's what you want is all punters that are interested in betting.
Yeah.
And if I back one runner, what it will do, maybe not immediately, but in a reasonable amount of time, it will increase the price of another runner. So there might be a recreational punter out there who wants to back horse B. I back horse A. He gets a better price than horse B because I'm able to bet. So trying to say that the barring of me somehow means he gets a better price on horse A it's complete nonsense because he's less likely to want to back that runner. You know what I mean? Look, because if there's 10 runners in the race,
and as we've learned from this show, there's no amount of disagreement in the market, is there?
Well, and as everyone can learn from the Melbourne Cup, we can all get it
Yeah.
fucking wrong.
absolutely.
He's Racetrack Ralphie.
Still.
At RT Ralphie on Twitter and at what's your website, Ralph?
Racetrackralphie.com.
Yep. At WinBetDan on Twitter. He's Darren Potter. His sets will be out for tomorrow and the weekend.
Friday night.
And Friday night as well.
And Punter Show Radio.
And Punter Show Radio is Saturday morning. And the regular Sydney show will be back tomorrow. I believe they're filming. So make sure everyone checks that out. And the big Top Better tournament will be on again this weekend. So thanks for joining us, and we'll be back next week. Thanks, guys.